and welcome to another episode of the Airport Communities Podcast. My name is J.C. Harris, and I am your host for today. This is Mailbag Episode 2. It's what we do when we don't have the real episode prepared. I mean, come on, it's the holidays, right? Friends, we get like a couple of dozen questions a week regarding articles and podcast stuff, and almost no comments. They're all like emails, and they all want an individual response. We have like one volunteer, and she answers the same questions over and over and over again, year in and year out. Please put your articles in the comments, or you'll just have to wait for Mailbag episode number 3. We wrote some stuff about Section 8810, the port package update financing in the last federal Department of Defense authorization bill. And wouldn't you know it, there was an article in the local blogs. They're all the same company, Sea-Tac blog, Waterland blog, B-Town blog. It was a press release, and obviously the congressman wants to tell people about something he did that he thinks is good, and the port likes it, and then, of course, a couple of the mayors will chime in with, great job! But nevertheless, the practical effect for you will likely be zero, at least for a couple of years. If you just read those kinds of press releases, you might think, oh, I guess everything's under control. The fact is the port has had a poor update program for 2 years now, and 0 homes have been fixed. So it puts us in this awkward, kind of 1984 position. When you say, hey, great news, and people don't see any great news. So when you read these articles, ask the blogs or whoever to follow us and to get with us for a comment, because that's the only way we're going to get past this basically not knowing what's true. Okay, moving on. We got like 5 identical questions about our episode on waiting. I feel bad because that was the one episode where I had some creative input. I assume that everybody knows who Fonzie was, which may not be true. Okay, here's the deal. Microphones just measure sound. And the port's microphones are like $2,000 a pop. State of the art. Waiting, I said this like 12 times, is just a tone control. When you get these noise reports, they are the recording minus the filter. The port could simply publish the unfiltered number. That's exactly what researchers are always asking about. And it brings up another issue. Researchers avoid politics like typhoid. They're the last ones who get into the fray because, frankly, they have grants and so on. Every noise researcher everywhere wants unfiltered noise reports. We keep trying to say that Sea-Tac should be the center of research, not just on air pollution, but also noise, because the airport does have this world-class noise monitoring network. It's better than almost any other airport system around. And it's been sitting there basically useless for 20 years. We get complaints, that one of the monitors doesn't even work. And it's just kind of a funny thing because, why should it work? Because the FAA, the noise reports don't do anything. But they could, even though they don't lead to flight penalties and so on. They are gold for researchers. If we can get the better reports, then you can get to the regulatory standard. They want to use A-weighting for the FAA, great. But just give the unfiltered data to researchers. I think that's what we were driving at. We've gotten a couple of very clever questions recently. People are starting to use that there ChatGPT. And so what they're doing is they're asking ChatGPT to sort of corroborate what we're saying. And so they ask in a very neutral way about topics like awaiting and anyway, that's just the one that's coming to mind right now because I was just going on. I know you've heard this, but they're just sentence completers. They're like the ultimate people pleasers. They're just reading what you write and then trying to follow. So it just statistically kicks back what it thinks you're looking for. Overwhelmingly, what you find on the interwebs is something very neutral that, will tell you awaiting is used by OSHA and it's the standard and so on and so forth. And if you just read it back, it doesn't present the problem accurately because it thinks you just want that bog standard. Next time you're on one of these AIs, just say, I read that awaiting is used in all noise monitoring at airports, which it is. I live near an airport and the noise drives me nuts. So give me the pros and cons of using awaiting for airport noise measurements. And write back what it spits out. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but really, that's what you want to do. But we fact check every episode. I try to keep it, fun and everything without juggling, but we fact check everything extremely rigorously. Yeah, we got questions, I would say, sort of complaints, more like it, about the airport discount. Basically, people said we were too vague. We should have quantified what that dollar amount is. Point taken. But here's the thing. You should ask yourself why nobody else has measured it. Because you know it's real, right? That's why most people live here. That wasn't an exaggeration. This is not the no data, no problem. It's something else. And it goes to the core of why we say we're a factory town. There is this automatic assumption that jobs are the same thing as wealth. They're not. This should be a duh moment, but it's not, because jobs are such a powerful concept. We were watching the Bloomberg team the other day do their forecast for 2026, and every economist going down the line said that if they were forced to pick one number to indicate a healthy economy, jobs. There's this notion that the port or the airport create wealth by creating jobs. Friends, even if the airport created a bajillion jobs in Burien, Des Moines, Sea-Tac, Vashon Island, you pick wherever. It doesn't, by the way. But a job is not what powers a city. Taxes power cities. The big problem, which we're all about to find out about with the SAMP, is that cumulative impacts and environmental justice do not exist. I know you think I'm going off on a tangent here, but the big thing people are going on about now is compensation and cumulative impacts. All the port has ever had to say is that by creating jobs, it is doing everything possible to build healthy communities. That's why they do so much stuff with training and apprenticeships, and it sounds great. I've been in 4 unions. Couldn't love it enough. But again, a job is not wealth. And what the port has done, the airport has done for decades, is say that because they create jobs, they're making your city strong. Go look at any of the negative airport impacts. Does a job fix them? Of course not, because it doesn't lead to tax payments for your city. You may pay too many taxes. I certainly wouldn't disagree, but they do not address airport impacts. They just don't. And so long as we allow the port to show jobs on an environmental impact statement, which they are doing, to show how they're addressing all of the community impacts of the airport, we will never get anywhere. So the airport discount, we're going to show you a bunch of numbers on that stuff. That's the essential tension, is that regardless of what the airport discount is, we have to short circuit the notion that the jobs fix that. They don't, they can't. A couple of people watched the last START meeting and got all hot and bothered about a visit from another roundtable, NICAR, which is like LaGuardia and JFK. I just want to note another thing that, we watched a Burien Airport Committee meeting last year, and wouldn't you know it, their city manager and a bunch of people questioned whether or not there were any other roundtables. How do we tell people? We visited over a dozen, including NICAR. We publish their meetings for people on some of our social media feeds. Their representative, very nice person, mentioned an umbrella group called Quiet Communities. Again, this is not news. We did an obituary for one of our heroes, Arlene Bronzaft, who found Quiet Communities. The presenter for the New York group mentioned the success with the company Vianair that STNI really worked hard to not hire here. One of their consultants' fave jokes is, seen one airport, seen one airport. We use that all the time. One thing that came up at the meeting is that there really is an FAA website where you can go and you can type in, I would like a flight path changed. Get back to us when that happens. So you pay a private company, hundreds of thousands of dollars to advocate for you. They have, after several years, had a certain success at Reagan DCA, a very narrow opportunity specific to the Potomac River. They can have a success at one airport due to that geography and topography, and then get nothing somewhere else. All of which is to say, we're not unaware of any of this stuff. And if we thought it had value for Sea-Tac communities under the flight path, we'd be all over it. But an essential part of our mission going into our 10th year, stop reinventing the wheel. People come in and they get dazzled by magical thinking every few years because the material is so deep. And that's how communities end up wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars and actually preventing good progress. We focus on the things that we know are possible now, 1 to 5 years. Along those same lines, we get regular questions from people all over the area, not just, at the fence line communities. And we'll get comments from Vashon, and people will say, there never used to be flights over my house. And that's simply not true. We can show you flight tracks going back to the 90s. We'll get notes from the east side. People will say, we never used to get flights over Medina or whatever. The fact is, there has been a tremendous concentration of flight paths, and the quantity has increased. But at the end of the day, there is this uncomfortable NIMBY thing that we have to rip the Band-Aid off. It's a question of balance and dispersion and what you feel you deserve. The reason the FAA is so snippy is because they don't want to move noise around. From their view, it's a question of equity. If the number of flights increase, they do have to go somewhere, right? Why should they just continue to concentrate ever more over one particular area? Seriously, if there was more pollution generated, should it simply just continue to concentrate and pound on the same group of people? Is it fair to avoid putting flights anywhere? It's a real question. They have tried to concentrate flight paths narrowly in order to keep as many neighborhoods free of noise. But on the other hand, they have tried very hard to avoid saying that any neighborhood is out of bounds. One of my favorite anecdotes is that when they were fighting the third runway in Des Moines, half the city council was in favor of it because they thought if they built a third runway, it might reduce the traffic over the existing two runways. That's been kind of the existential question. And that's why we just call it what it is, NIMBYism. Getting back to consultants, one thing, it might be helpful to hire a company like Vianair to provide a strategy to get slightly better flight path outcomes for further away neighborhoods. Maybe the islands, maybe North Seattle, the east side, but they ain't cheap. Why should any city that will not derive a benefit from changing flight paths pay for it? Fairness means equity across all domains, not just noise and pollution, but also the costs. We hear about, well, why don't they do something about the east side, And we'll get comments all the time from people on the east side who are familiar with a term that you on the west side may not. It's called the zipper. The original notion was to have two paths, one coming up the west and one coming up the east, and then they would join together in the north end and, zipper merge, how you're supposed to do if you're polite on the freeway. People think it doesn't happen. It is currently happening. It will happen more unless we start reducing the number of flights, because the planes do have to go somewhere. The story we've been trying to tell for going into our 10th year is that Sea-Tac is amazingly efficient at that. Keep saying it over and over again. And when you get really good at it, there's no reason for a customer to go anywhere else. So I guess it's time to start having some episodes on flight paths, because changing flight paths is obviously just irresistible to people. We are an equal opportunity grouser, right? In this mailbag, we've groused at local media and at people all around the area and our own electeds and stuff. We really are all in this together. It's just that we have not had a shared approach that benefits all of us. It's a long game. We've struggled with that because we know it's going to take years. We still get notes from people from 6 years ago, and we're like, look, if you just volunteered with us 6 years ago, we'd be further along. You did not want to hear the message that it was going to take 5 years. So now it's going to take 5 more years. If everybody can just sort of, have a glass of Chardonnay, recognize that it's going to take 5 years and start helping us in 2026, we'll get there. If you keep screaming for instant relief that won't happen, it'll take 10. And I don't want it to take 10. Oh yeah, for 2026, good news is we've forked over for some more help to do data visualizations and reporting, and it's only going to get better. better. One of the things that we've been weak on, we've been using the port and the FAA's own visualization and reporting tools. It's like ChatGPT. It's telling their story, right? It's tailored to fit their narrative. We're going to start showing you same data, but presented in a way that we think you will find pretty interesting. So on that bombshell and cliffhanger, here's to making things better not in 2026, but, how about, 2027, 2028. How's that? Oh, boy, that's a real morale builder. But that's the thing. Congressman Smith's bill will not take effect until 2027. But somebody, meaning us, has to stick around to make sure that it's implemented properly. It's not going to implement itself. So help us out, send in a few shekels, offer to volunteer. Let's make 2026 the best 2029 you ever saw.